Well, hello there and welcome to another Warbird Wednesday. My name is Fred Bell. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum. And behind me is one of the most intriguing airplanes the United States has built. And this is the F-104, the Starfighter. I'm going to tell you why it's intriguing. I'm here today with my beguiling cameraman, Greg Kenny. Greg, you are truly a beguiling individual. I am wearing on my head, which is very exciting. This is a donated hat I am coiffed with today. And Greg is raising his eyes. He's excited about this. So I am, in essence, Greg, the Mad Hatter. Is it not? Oh, Greg is nodding his head. He likes that. So I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to toss it off camera to my beguiling assistant, who has done an excellent job again. Now, the F-104 Starfighter, one of the Century Series fighters, comes out. It's a Kelly Johnson design, and it comes out of the legendary Skunk Works, the Lockheed Skunk Works. Now, the interesting thing about the Skunk Works is, Greg, we're going to get another airplane. You know which one it is from the Skunk Works. We're getting one. It's coming in. It's actually going to be in, people ask me about this all the time. It's actually coming in, we hope, in September. We've been a little bit delayed with all the shutdowns and everything, but theoretically, the F-117A, tail number 833, will be here in September. It's coming down from Tonopah after it's being demilled. So we'll have another fine Lockheed product. Greg, are you excited about that? I'm excited about that. So the nice thing about the plane behind me is this is a huge advance in technology. And remember, we've talked in the past about German designs and the Russians and the Americans kind of taking German designs and bringing them forward. What you're seeing with the Century Series fighters is that now you're starting to see our industrial and design complex kind of take over, and the airplanes are going to the next step. This airplane behind me is clearly that. It was operated, it was first flown in the early 50s, came into being in the late 50s as far as in operational service, and it was in operational service of the United States Air Force until the early 70s, and it was retired, Greg, it was retired, Fred, fun fact, the Italian Air Force, my paisanos, you know, Jimmy DiMatteo, Guido is his call sign, and all the Italians out there. This airplane was retired in 2004 with the Italian Air Force. Greg, Fred, fun fact, do you know what the Italians called it? And I'm going to butcher this because I cannot speak Italian, beguiling Greg. They called it the Spiglione, which was the hat pin. That was the name of this airplane when the Italians operated, or their nickname for the airplane. They operated up until 2004. It was built under license by a number of European companies, and it was fairly well distributed through our allies. Now, it was built, and Greg, I'm going to throw out some some airplane humor today. I'm on fire today. Some airplane humor today, Greg. A World War II pilot is invited into a classroom by a teacher, and he wants her to tell, she wants him to tell the students about his exploits during the Battle of Britain. And he says, well, the Fokkers were coming at me from the left and the Fokkers were coming at me from the right, trying to shoot me down. And the teacher in the back of the classroom says, well, I didn't realize that there were Fokkers in World War II. And the pilot looks back at her and he says, no, ma'am, they were Messerschmitts. I'm here all week. Be kind to your waitstaff. Josh Gates, that is my attempt at your type of just blatant humor. By the way, Josh Gates, we are watching you. So bad is the rivalry with Josh Gates got that my daughter came in yesterday. She had stopped it on his latest program, and Greg, what was he doing? Wearing a hat. He had a hat on, and he was doing our drink bit that we stole from somebody else. So Josh Gates, we are going to have to, and Greg, you're going to have to figure out new and interesting ways to challenge Josh Gates, because for some reason he just continues to copy us. At least we believe in our own mind. Josh Gates probably has no idea even who we are. But Josh Gates, we are watching you. And he has a good show on the Discovery Channel and the History Channel. So the F-104. The F-104 is interesting. We'll give you a little bit of a plan view on it. And the plan view for the F-104 is you can see that interesting wing design. The F-104 was nicknamed the missile with a man in it. And the reason for that was, you can see this shape. Now, the Air Force went to various companies, and they were upset about what airplane, Greg? What airplane were they upset about? They're upset about, we've done a show on it, the MiG-15. They didn't like the MiG-15 because it was so small and maneuverable, and they were having trouble with it. These larger airplanes were having a lot of trouble with it. So the Air Force went to various companies and said, we need a small, lightweight, point defense fighter. The F-104 was Kelly Johnson's and Lockheed's answer to that. Now, you have to remember, at this time in American military aircraft production, gosh, that's a mouthful, isn't it, beguiling Greg? We were still doing purpose-built airplanes. We've talked about the F-4 and a lot of subsequent follow-on airplanes that they were being built for to do multi-role, multi-purpose. This particular airplane and a lot of the Century Series aircraft and many airplanes that were built in that time frame were built for specific missions. They had a specific role. It's Air Force, Navy, Marines, wherever. And this particular airplane, as you can see, it's small, and Greg can get an all-around shot from me. It's a very small airplane. It has this unique trapezoidal wing. Now, the young man at home, I want you to look up this trapezoidal wing and learn about it. I also want you to figure out where it came from. It was out of a design from Lockheed called the X7. And I want you to go out and look that up and learn about that. But that's where this design started from. Now, the airplane itself, as far as the geometry of the airplane, is very small, very narrow. Not a lot of onboard fuel. Not a lot of onboard fuel. We'll talk about that. Interesting tail design. Remember, we talked about anhedral and dihedral designs on the wings. This airplane has that in spades. We're not going to spend a lot of time with it. So it didn't have a lot of fuel. The one thing about this, or a couple of things about this wing design, what were they, Greg? You flew your F-104 in some time. Greg's looking at me like, no, I didn't. No, Greg did not do it. He does many things, but he's never flown the F-104. But this airplane with this wing, a couple of things. One, the wing was very sharp. It was what they're trying to do is create a really low drag surface here. But with this design, it created a couple of interesting characteristics. The airplane had very high landing speeds. It was very, very good at high speed. It was really good with that. But this wing design, from a lift standpoint, meant that it had a lot higher landing speed, so it used a lot of runway. And the other thing, and I've talked to guys who flew actually against the Italians with this airplane, and the one thing that they have told me when they were flying against this airplane is that the biggest challenge was, look at that head-on view. I don't know if you can see that, but there is not a lot of cross-section there. So the Italians would be very good at getting nose-on this airplane, and if you're in combat and you're doing simulated combat, you will notice, or in any of the videos you got on YouTube, even there's a couple of really good Libyan shoot-down videos with F-14s versus some of the Libyan aircraft. There we have we're on the airport today, so we have a fine airliner coming in. It's probably going to blow out my mic here, but they would always try to get nose-on with whoever they were fighting against because this airplane had such a difficult cross-section to see. Now, the one thing that it didn't do, and you F-104 drivers out there can argue with me or whatever, but I am told that this airplane turned like essentially a pie plate. And what I mean by that was it did not turn well because of these wings. So it wasn't incredibly maneuverable, but it was really, really good at high speeds, and that is its primary job. Now, it also it was place carted at Mach 2. I'm like stuck at Mach 2, Greg. 1,200, 1,400 miles an hour. I don't know what that is, but these airplanes all now there was a reason for this airplane. It could go faster. Did you know that, Greg? It could actually go faster, but one of the problems was this had a J79 engine in it, and as it went faster, what did it do, Greg, when it went faster? the engine overheated. It had a lot of engine overheating problems. So they place carted this aircraft in Air Force service at Mach 2. And the ones that were in Air Force service were F-104Cs. There was a G model built by Fokker. Fokker built it, so you go back to that joke. See, it all ties together now. We're making the universal thing there. So Fokker built this airplane. This particular aircraft behind me, although it is in U.S. Air Force colors, it is actually a Fokker-built airplane that was retired actually in the early 80s and then was maintained at one of the technical schools up until about 1997, where it went into storage. We own this airplane. And that means that we have all of it, including the radar, the J79 engine. It is an aircraft that, you know, I've talked in other segments, like with the F-100, about I'd love to see that airplane fly again. The F-104 is a toughie. And although we own the entire airplane, the museum owns the entire airplane, I doubt seriously that we'll ever see this airplane. There are some guys on the East Coast that are flying them, from what I understand. There are a few that are still in service around the world privately, but I doubt seriously we'll fly the airplane. The J79 engine, Greg, is on display here, actually. It is in our engine display, and a very cool engine. Now, not only was it in Air Force service and in service around the world, by the way, the G model and this model here is a little longer fuselage, and it has a little bit more avionics. It was updated, but Gs were never used by the United States Air Force unless they were being used in some very specialized role. The C model was the aircraft that was primarily used in point defense and in most of the Air Force squadrons. Now, what is this airplane, Greg? It's also a movie star. Did you know that? It is a movie star. Why is it a movie star, Greg? You've seen the movie The Right Stuff. What you have, Greg, The Right Stuff. There, he's rolling his eyes again.
Hey, Ridley.
Yeah,
You got any Beamans?
I might have, me a stick.
Well, loan me some, would you? I'll pay you back later.
Fair enough.
Think I see a plane over here with a name on it.
Now you talk.
This airplane is in the Chuck Yeager sequence. That is an NF-104. It has a rocket motor on the tail, and it had some thrusters in the front of the airplane, and they could use this for astronaut training and low orbit training for astronauts. Now, the exciting thing is we actually have, Greg, did you know this? Fred, fun fact, we have one of these NF-104 pilots with us. He is on the side of this airplane, Bob Lilac, right on the side of that airplane. And he was one of those pilots. And if you come to the museum, there's a chance that you could talk to him about that. And in the film, Yeager gets the airplane up and he ends up bailing out of the airplane and the ejection seat hits him and he gets all messed up. He loses the aircraft. But there were pilots that did fly this that are still around. And Bob Lilac is one of them. This is actually Bob Lilac's airplane right here. He fit right in there. He's a fairly small guy, so he fit in the airplane. But no, that's not, Greg's rolling his eyes. That's not true. Now, Bob Lilac's aircraft, the aircraft that Bob flew, my understanding is up at Edwards Air Force Base on display. So you can go see that. So go see that. And Bob is an amazing guy and one of the guys you really want to hear from stuff about. The other side of the airplane is Buzzy Lynch, who was one of the test pilots. And all of these airplanes, remember, at the museum are all tied to real people. And I'm not going to give you all their stories because I do want you to come here and see it. But you got if you get a chance, talk to Bob Lilac, a very interesting guy, incredible Air Force career, and somebody that you want to come in and learn from. He's been a huge help to the museum, and we really appreciate him being a docent. Now, this airplane also we have aircraft that are tribute aircraft. I'm going to put this airplane down or back on the ground, the little pedestal here. This airplane, and Greg, I don't know if you can get a shot of this as you move in. This is a tribute aircraft to Colonel Norm Schmidt. He was shot down in 1966, one of the Air Force, the 104 losses, and he was actually killed in captivity in 1967. His widow came here, and her signature is actually on the side of the airplane. A lot of his folks who knew him, and so we want you to come here. I actually have one of his POW bracelets. It was a standard practice in the United States at that time to do bracelets to not forget about these men, whatever service they were, whether they were MIA or they were captured or they were killed in action. And I actually have his bracelet, and you could come see this. It's actually in the exhibit on the POW MIA in the Miles hangar. Now, one thing I will say about that, I wear Tony Shine's bracelet every day, and Tony was shot down December the 2nd in 1972, and what it symbolizes to me is nothing in my life is that difficult, because at that point for Tony the war was over. We were in the process of getting out of Vietnam, and he was one of the last casualties. He actually went out in his airplane and just never came back. They never knew what happened to him. He was found, his remains were found in the late 90s. He's in Arlington. His family knows I wear this, but I wear it every day. And it just is a signal about a significance to me about your life is never that difficult. And our service members go out and put their lives on the line every day. And in some cases, they just don't come back. So be good to your active duty service member or your vets. They put it all on the line for us, and they continue to defend our country. Now, if you're a gunslinger, Greg, what do you need? If you're a gunslinger, you got to have one thing, right? And this is a gunslinger. This airplane is an absolute point defense, straight up gunslinger. What do you have to have, Greg? You have to have spurs. Greg, am I like tying it all together today or what? I mean, I'm on fire. I must have had my Wheaties this morning. I don't eat Wheaties, but I had something this morning. So this is a stirrup. Now, if you can imagine, and how claustrophobic would this be? You get in your car and you have to put your feet in stirrups in the seat. And this stirrup was designed, and this spur, whatever you want to call it, was designed for the ejection seat in the F-104. Now, early ejection seats in the F-104, and we have a great shot of this, they actually shot you out of the airplane, and Greg can get a pickup shot. They actually ejected you out of the bottom of the airplane. As you can see, he's getting shot out of the bottom of the airplane. That's a problem in what way, Greg? We talked about ejection seats and the early ejection seats not being very reliable, low level. That's one thing. But if you're on the runway and you're in an ejection seat that shoots you out of the bottom of the airplane, you're having a bad day. You're having a really bad day. And so they decided to change that in the design later, and the ejection seat shot you out of the top of the airplane. Now, these spurs, what would happen is so your feet didn't hit the control panel or the front of the airplane as you initiated the ejection sequence, that would pull your feet in. It would tuck your feet in, and then it would eject you out. Later aircraft and the G model and later F-104s had Martin Baker seats in them, which are what we call a 0-to-0 seat. They actually you could eject anywhere, and they were designed to get you out of the airplane. But remember, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, these early seats were nothing more than the guy was sitting on an artillery shell, and it would fire and just shoot him out of the airplane. Now, with the tail on this airplane being as high as it was, and Greg, you can see that there, that big tail, you had to get the guy far enough away so he didn't hit this, and that was one reason why in the early design they shot him out the bottom, because they were worried about this tail. They eventually got it perfected. The early aircraft were not all-weather fighters, but as they modified the F-104, it became an all-weather fighter. Now you can see, and Greg, I'm going to take you back a little bit here. The airplane carried about 4,000 pounds of stores. Again, fuel tanks, not a lot of fuel. It carried sidewinders. It did have a gun, which is very important, which we talked about before. But with this airplane, what were you doing? What did you have to do, Greg? A lot. You had to hit that tanker because you're burning fuel. So it did have a refueling probe on some of the later versions of the airplane, and you'd have to get up and hit that tanker a lot because the thing burned a lot of fuel. So it was a unique airplane, but it was one of those aircraft that was kind of going through, we were going through all these generational airplanes, and this was one of those Century Series purpose-built airplane, came and then kind of went as we modified into more all-purpose aircraft. Now, one of the things I'm going to do today, Greg, we're breaking our rule, but I know this is because of Josh Gates. So if I'm poisoned today, Josh Gates, I was poisoned, is we're stepping up. Every time we have gone with something colored like this, I have had to go and call poison control. So we're going to do this today. This is a Goody Blue Pop since 1923. Greg, you're finding all these old companies. I don't know who the heck bottles this. This is Berry Cream, not one of my exciting flavors that I'm really excited about. But gee, they're very proud of their drink. It says, golly, it's good. Now this one, I always check the shelf life since the one that you gave me from 1976 that nearly killed me. This one is actually good until September of 20. I do want to say that Goody Blue Pop is not a sponsor of this program. So I'm going to pop this with the pop. And what I'm going to do is talk about all of those Vietnam pilots and service members that were POWs and lost. I want to salute you. This is a tribute airplane. And so I encourage you to come in and see and learn about them in the Miles Hangar with the MIA POW exhibit. Thank you, and thank you to their families. Thank you for your service. Greg tilted his head back there. There was like the anticipation of whether or not I just roll on my back and start. Greg, you have, now, there's 160 calories in this. This thing is essentially a giant sugar bomb. I can taste it, but it's actually quite good, Greg. You have broken your, I'm going to continue to drink this. As I said, Greg is wiping his brow behind. You can't see it, but there's a sigh of relief, and he's put his phone away, so he's not having to call the paramedics. But yeah, this is actually not bad. Very good, Greg. Now, that's the stage 2 today is a tribute to all of those folks that were in Vietnam that held the line, and many of them didn't come back. I also want to say, as I said, thank you to Bob Lilac. He was actually instrumental in helping us get this airplane, and Bob, we appreciate what you do. Now, what does Bob wear to bed every day? What do you think? He wears a shirt. He wears the shirt, the Century Series shirt. And I'm going to walk around this way, go behind the shirt. If you want to be like Bob Lilac and wear a cool shirt, this shirt will, like I said, it lowers your drag coefficient. It makes you about 20 miles an hour faster. This shirt is for you. This has all the Century Series fighters on it, and it is something that will amaze your friends and make you very popular at parties. You can go out to our website and pick that up. It is very nice. It's a pretty color, and we want you to go out and pick that up. So this today has been our overview of the F-104 Starfighter. I want to thank you for joining us today. Remember, smash that subscribe button and like us on Facebook. Get out there. We can use your donations. We just finished flying for the 4th. We can use your donations to keep us flying, keep us in gasoline so we can keep going. And we want you to have a great day. My name's Fred Bell. Thank you for visiting us.